Have any of those observer missions, embassies, foreign journalists approached you or your office with evidence of your members of the army being 1st of August 2018?
Chair, through you. No, nobody has approached us. But let me just say, before the elections, I had 3 or so groups of observers and so on who came to see me. And I'm sorry to say, but they seem to have been interested in knowing whether we would accept Chamisa if he won the elections. And I say to them, we will be guided by the Constitution. We disappointed that when the alliance was talking violence and so on, very few of these groups actually took the trouble to sit down with him and advise him that what he was doing was wrong. Further, Chair, I think I just want to make this clear. We would have been very foolish as a defense force to give orders to our troops to open fire on civilians with all these people who were in the country. We still had a lot of observers, we still had a lot of reporters, and really we would have been out of our minds to give such an order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Are you able to advise the Commission as to what sort of weapons the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, the army personnel were carrying, and what effect those would have had being fired on the public, on a crowd of about 300-400 people, sometimes 3,000 to 4,000 as we have been told?
Thank you. Yes, the troops were carrying AK rifles and then whips and batons. But to answer your question on the effect of the AK-47 rifle, in a crowded room, as we are in here, if someone were to come in with an AK rifle with 30 rounds in a magazine, we would probably have quite a few deaths in here and quite a few injuries. I cannot give you figures because it will depend on how he's going to go about it. But for people who are in line, and if the round does not go where they are bones and it is hitting flesh, in here it can take, one round can take 6-7 people down. And that's how effective it can be. So in a group, you can have, it can cause a lot of damage. Just imagine, in the US there have been a number of shootings recently, and they've been using either handguns, which are pistols, revolvers, and so on, or small automatic rifles. But look at the damage that they have caused in 2 or 3 locations where it has happened recently. So if there was any aimed fire by the soldiers into those groups, there would have been a lot more deaths, a lot more deaths. Okay. Thank you.
Now finally, General Sibanda, it would be amiss if I didn't draw your attention to a video clip that you have referred to in your evidence earlier on. There is the now famous, or shall I call it infamous, video clip of one of your members kneeling on the ground and firing. The clip shows another member of the force coming from behind and hitting this member of the army as if to dissuade them from further carrying on. Have you received any reports pertaining to what exactly transpired there, and what would be your comment to that?
Thank you. Yes, the report I have received is that they were given orders to advance and not to take kneeling positions. So when that fellow took a kneeling position, he had obviously contradicted the order that was given of advancing. And this is why the other one tapped him to tell him that what he was doing was not the orders.
The gun seems to be discharging quite a lot of bullets. Judging from your experience, if those had been aimed at, and again, I know this is very difficult in asking you to speculate, but if you can give us an indication of what sort of damage the rapid fire that you saw on that clip would have done if aimed at the public or civilians who are unarmed.
Well, like I said, the damage would have been quite substantial, and it's clear that while it is that fellow was opened fire, he must have been warning the rioters, because if he had aimed at them, then would have had more deaths in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else, General, that you feel you want to share with the commissioners and the public at this stage?
Not now. I will pass for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I will now hand you over to the Commission. I'm sure they have a number of questions that they want to put to you for some clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any clarification questions, Commissioners? Yes, General.
Chairman, thank you very much for your testimony. I just wish to know, apart from the AK-47 that the National Reaction Force had carried with them, did you have any other weapons apart from the AK-47 which were used to manage the violence?
No. Chair, no other weapons other than AK-47 except for the whips and batons. Thank you.
The commander of the National Reaction Force did inform the Commission that an after-action review was carried out. Is it possible for you to share with us some of the findings of that review?
Thank you, through the Chair. Yes, there were after-action reviews which were conducted at various levels of command. I had my own, which we did together with the police, and a number of issues came up, one of them being that of appropriate equipment. Secondly, better coordination. Thirdly, associated with equipment, we need to be able to get better quality pictures so that we can actually identify individuals and so on and so on. So there were a number of issues that came up which we have documented and which we're going to be using going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes,
General Sibanda, there is, I'm sure you are familiar with our term of reference, and I'll read you one of the terms that is critical, which is why we're asking. It requires us as a commission to consider whether the degree of force used was proportionate to the threat to public safety, law and order. Now, this term of reference would require us to actually determine whether or not it was the military or the police who fired at the persons that lost their lives, or who fired at those that were injured. Because we can only determine the degree of force if we conclude that that force was actually used by the military or the police. I don't know whether you appreciate that point.
Thank you. Yes, I do appreciate what you are trying to get at. Let me put it this way. When you do an estimate of a situation in my environment, you look at how best you can deal with that situation in the shortest possible time, and in this particular case, with minimum damage and loss of life. And we looked at that, and we believe that the force that was eventually deployed by the Commander National Reaction Force was appropriate, and the weapon was appropriate in the sense that you cannot deploy a soldier without his equipment. It might not have been appropriate in the sense that we're carrying an AK as opposed to maybe a weapon that can take rubber bullets. But otherwise, the force that was used and so on was appropriate in my view. And as you notice, it was only about 1.5 hours or so, and the city was almost back to normal, except that there were no people because of what had happened.
But that means that the force you are referring to in your evidence is the force other than shooting at anyone. If I get your evidence correctly, that the army did not shoot at any person, they didn't do that. Well, the force we are assessing will be the force less than that.
Indeed, thank you. I have no reason whatsoever to believe that one of the soldiers could have shot and killed those people. I have no reason whatsoever. The orders were very clear, and I can't see what would have happened. Yes, I know they were pummeled by the rioters using stones and various other missiles, but I don't think that was enough justification for them to use weapons on these rioters. So I don't believe soldiers opened fire on the rioters. Let me just say to the commission chair that from where I sit in my office in town, I heard gunfire well before the troops deployed. So I think it would be wrong for people to just take it for granted that yes, because the soldiers went into town, they are the ones who killed the people. Thank you.
Well, if I may follow up on that point, we had evidence earlier on, I think from one of your senior brigadier general. The line taken, which was very clear to us, and which I think you have confirmed, is that there is no basis for saying that the soldiers were responsible for shooting at people or for the death. I think that line is clear from what you are saying, which would mean that all what is to, from your point of view, there might have been other people that could have shot because you had gunshots yourself before the army had been deployed. So is it the line of the defense forces that, because you have no reason to believe that this could have come from the soldiers? In other words, your position, because they are dead, there were injuries coming from gunshots. Would it be correct to say your position is surely someone else did it who is not the defense forces?
Well, thank you. That's what I want to believe, because really, and I want to repeat this, I have no reason of putting this blame on the military. I have no reason whatsoever. Thank you.
Which means this commission may have to help. Either it says it doesn't know at the end of the report. We report to the president that we were unable to establish who killed people, or you would say that because we need assistance, that we might need to go further and establish. Because if it is not the military, from the evidence that we're hearing before the army came today, from the evidence, everyone else said it is the army. What we thought we were going to get from you would have been the justification. Indeed, even the police officers who came before you, they went so far as to say, well, if the army showed they did it in good faith, they didn't actually exclude the military. It is only now the military that is excluding itself. Are you appreciating that point? No one else has categorically excluded the military. It is only the military that is excluding itself categorically. I'm not sure whether you're appreciating that.
Thank you. Yes, I do. But if there is anyone who saw a soldier shoot a rioter and the rioter dropped there or ran bleeding and so on, then that person should come forward. They should come forward. In the absence of that, I think it's just too much speculation. And generally, we have in this country the belief that when something bad happens, especially to human beings, it is the military. That is wrong.
Yeah, but you do accept, and I think that the evidence we got earlier on also accepted, that one of the instructions given to the soldiers, or at least the line of operation, is that you would not kneel if you are shooting in the air. And there is public evidence that there was a breach of that rule. Now, why are you so sure that there was no breach of other rules? Because this one, from your evidence and from the evidence of the previous witness, this particular soldier breached a rule clearly and openly. But then we now hear that, well, that was the only rule breached. Other rules were not breached. Why would it be that? Why would you be so categorical about it?
Well, the kneeling soldier, I've already said, whatever happened to him, he was not supposed to take that position. They were supposed to be moving forward, and because when you kneel, you also slow down the process. And this is why they were told they should not kneel, they should continue, they should advance without kneeling. And so, yes, that happened, and there will always be these things that happen from time to time. But I don't believe there was any soldier who opened fire on these rioters. Because if that had happened, then we would have had more deaths than the numbers that we are talking about.
Yeah, my final question takes you to the legal position. You have indicated that you have documents. Unfortunately, I don't have them. I would have wanted to look at them. I will see them when we get them from our secretary. First, that would be too late if you would have gone. We need to check that as well. You made reference to Section 37 of the Public Order, Secretary. Is it your evidence then that indeed the process came from the Commissioner of Police to the Minister of Home Affairs, from the Minister of Home Affairs to the Minister of Defense? And I'm not sure whether that is where it ended and then it came back to you, or was it the other provision in the Constitution that says that only the President can deploy members of the Defense Forces? Can you just shed light on the documents that we are going to see after, whether they relate to the letters from the minister, or was the President involved in the decision to deploy the Defense Forces?
Thank you. Like I said, I have 4 letters. One from the Commissioner General of Police to the Minister of Home Affairs, indicating that the situation was getting out of hand. The second letter is from the Minister of Home Affairs to the Minister of Defense, indicating that the situation was getting out of hand and there was need for troops or support from the military. There is another letter from the Vice President to the President requesting that authority. What I cannot say is whether that letter was responded to, because it will not get to me. That correspondence will not get to me. To go from the President to the VP, and then the VP gives me the instructions to go ahead. Whether it was verbal communication, I don't know. But I can imagine that because of what was happening, it's probable that there were consultations verbally and the go-ahead given by the President to the Minister of Defense, who was Vice President then, or Vice President, who then gave me the instructions to deploy. So that is what is there.
So what we end up with is the Minister of Defense to yourself. There is no communication among the papers we are going to see from the President.
Like I said, there is a letter from the Minister of Defense to the President, but I have not seen any response but I took it that they could have discussed and said, yes, go ahead verbally and so on. Maybe that is a response that might come from HE himself, I don't know.
But in terms of the system, the constitutional position, is it your understanding that when the president deploys, as indicated in the constitution, that deployment, is it done directly to the commander of the defense forces, or is it through the Minister of Defense?
It is through the Minister of Defense. On very rare occasions do you get the Commander-in-Chief saying to me directly, go do that. Yes, it can be done because I have a direct beeline to him, and he can also talk to me whenever he wishes. So it can be done, but it's not done that often.
Any other?
General, thank you very much for attending to testify today. I want to just ask a few questions. Firstly, about the investigation you said that you did just after the event on the 1st of August. You said that you conducted an investigation which led to a statement, and your investigation showed no problems.
Well, I didn't say it showed no problems. I said we conducted a joint investigation with the police,
Right.
Visited a number of places that where assaults had been alleged to have taken place, and we came up with nothing. We spoke to a number of observers who were still in the country, and I remember some of them went even through the Minister of Foreign Affairs to say we've got these allegations and so on and so on. The Minister of Foreign Affairs met with us, and we were also with His Excellency. And we investigated these issues and came up with nothing. See, there are issues that people want to raise at times where issues between neighbors and so on and so on come to the fore when you've got such an occurrence, because then people can take it and say, okay, I was beaten by soldiers. Yet in fact it was an issue between two neighbors or whoever who have got their own grudges. But certainly we did conducted investigations and we did not come up with any evidence.
And how long did that investigation last for?
Well, it was a very quick one. It was, I think, 2, 3, or 4 days.
And then it was closed. You haven't kept it open, is that right?
Well, we haven't, because then we passed it on to the police. And there was another incident later, which was also along the same lines. Again, we conducted investigations and we sought assistance from the public to bring the culprits to book. Please give us pictures, vehicles, individuals, and so on, and nothing happened.
And when you conducted that investigation, did you go to the places where it was alleged people had been shot and ask people there for information?
We in town or?
In town, yes.
Well, there was a team that went there, but that was very much on the side of the investigators, not me directly.
No, not you, but your team.
They went and conducted what needed to be conducted. Whether they were a complete team or not, I cannot say. But certainly there were investigations that were conducted.
I mean, we have heard a lot of evidence in the last month about what happened to certain people who were killed and injured. I don't know if you followed the proceedings, whether you've seen that evidence and whether any of that evidence was brought to your attention at the time?
Well, we have seen proceedings, but really I can't say more than what we have seen, heard, and so on. There is very little else that I can go on in that area. We have left most of it to the police.
And the evidence that we've heard, that could be provided to the police, it could be provided to you for further investigation?
Well, if it is there, we will be happy to have it. Although we cannot do it on our own, we need to do it with the police, and the police will take the lead.
I wanted to ask if you had any information from these investigations that the demonstrators were armed with any firearms themselves?
Well, I don't think there was any hard evidence, but there is a belief amongst our intelligence operatives, and indeed within the job system, that members of the vanguard have got some weapons. That belief is there, and I'm sure we'll get to know about it. It's not going to be long before somebody gets arrested, and then we can prove this point.
That's just what I was trying to reconcile, because if there was that kind of information available, why give the order to your troops not to open fire in any circumstances on anyone? Because obviously if there were weapons, they could be fired at, and then you would want your troops surely to go fire back.
Well, you see, for soldiers, you will not open fire at somebody who is not shooting at you. But when somebody shoots at you, you don't have to go back to a training center. That becomes automatic. So that one was excluded because we were saying these are not firing. Once somebody fires at you, then the game begins. And there was no firing in this particular case that anybody talked about from the rioters.
So you were under the impression that they were not using any weapons, so therefore there'd be no need to issue any order to fire at them if necessary?
My understanding, my analysis is that if they had any weapons, they could have used them elsewhere, but not face to face with the troops, because that would have brought in a lot of consequences. So if they use the weapons, they use them elsewhere, but not where the troops could see them.
But you said you'd heard some gunshots before the army was deployed. Was that not something of concern that would have alerted you to the need to inform the troops that if they had to defend themselves, they should do so?
Well, there were already police elements on the ground, so I'm not sure where, and then there were these key points that are also guarded. And we now know that there was firing at the provincial offices of ZANU-PF. That could be part of the gunfire that I had, because this was like 30 minutes to an hour before the troops actually got onto the ground.
Yes, we've heard some evidence from the police officers who say they were firing warning shots. So the shots you heard could have been from there.
Possible.
I know you also gave evidence about if the soldiers had fired into the crowds, many more would have been killed. And we certainly accept that evidence. If all the soldiers opened fire on a crowd of 4,000 to 5,000 people, there would have been many deaths. But would you agree with me, we're trying to look at it now on the evidence we have, that depends very much on how many soldiers fired, if they did, and how many people were standing in front of them. It's completely dependent on the factual circumstances.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't think these fellows were just standing there and so on. They were obviously moving, running, and so on, changing positions. So, but whichever way you want to look at it, if the soldiers had opened fire with aimed shots, then the damage, the deaths, the injuries would have been a lot more.
So do you accept, because we have to explore all options under our terms of reference, that there might have been some civilians killed accidentally by some soldiers, maybe firing in the air and ricochets? Is that a possibility?
Well, let me just say the orders were clear. Don't fire at the raptors. That was very clear.
Now, I understand that. What we're just trying to explore as the commissioners is whether there's any possibility that some soldiers, even if it's very few, acted outside of their orders, made mistakes. We know soldiers around the world don't always act according to the orders. It might be a small number, but there is that possibility. So is there something that you've looked at all? Is there something we should look at?
Well, I cannot say don't look into it. I'm sure the commission has got all the powers. The mandate is there. You can go ahead and do the needful in order to come to the bottom of this. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, I think the troops stuck to the orders, except for that individual who went on leave.
It's very clear what orders they were given. What I'm just trying to see is whether there's any possibility that something might have gone wrong, even in a small aspect on the day, and whether there's any information that you might be able to assist us with either now or later.
Right now, I don't have. If going forward we have got information, we will bring it to the fore.
Just one bit of information I wanted to mention, which we explored earlier, was the National Trade Union Federation in Jason Moyer Avenue, if I've got the address right. We heard some evidence about how there were shots apparently that went into the windows on the second and third floor. And there's some video evidence as well of what appears to be a soldier firing randomly into the air in that way. It's a matter to be investigated, but I just wondered whether that had been brought to your attention at all, because there's video of it and we've seen the damage.
Yes, I also listened to the fellow who was giving evidence this morning. It's possible, but I want to say if they found a cartridge in one of the offices, then it means there must have been somebody who was firing from there, because a cartridge would not find itself on a second or third floor, on the floor of a second or third floor building. It could only come out of a gun from somebody who was firing a gun at that floor or on that floor, or maybe somebody picked it and went up with it, but who would have done that? And no soldiers went up any buildings.
So it is not, I know, an incident that you're aware of. I mean, this is one we are investigating, and I take it from what you're saying that you would also look into this matter further if the evidence was there. That's what you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, General, for your answers.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I want to understand this aspect of the use of force, which is one issue we are investigating. And from the use of force which was used by the platoons on the ground, I would want to understand from your side the type of weapons that the troops were carrying. Which weapons were they carrying?
They were carrying AK-47s, rifles, or the various variants of the AK-47, and whips and batons.
Okay. In the same vein of trying to understand the use of force by the troops on the ground, we had you and the previous commander talked about the warning shots that were fired. Is there a summary of an approximation on the number of the warning shots, if it is possible, that one can have that estimation on the number of the warning shots vis-a-vis? I mean, I would want to understand the number of warning shots, and then of course we have heard by the previous speaker of the numbers in terms of the riot here. But now I think that the warning shots, if I can have, maybe if you make that summation, if you have it now, you can present it. If you don't have, it's something that we would want to have to help us understand this aspect of use of force.
I don't have that information right now, but I can avail it to the commission.
Please, greatly would appreciate it would help us on that aspect. And the other aspect related to our understanding of the use of force is to check if there are any reports of citizens that could have been affected by the warning shots that were fired medically. Are there any reports? Just to enable us to understand the aspect on the use of force.
I don't have any information to that effect. Maybe the police would have it, but you see, when you fire warning shots, you are supposed to do it in such a manner that the rounds don't hit any structures around, or they don't hit any person, because they're supposed to be warning shots.
In biomedically, I'm not excluding, harm not for the wounds, other medical issues that could have arisen. So I was trying to ascertain whether there was any such reports. But from the reports we received in the morning, from the two hospitals, I should say, they are all to do with the gunshots and not of the other nature that I'm looking at. And we're just trying to pursue the issue of use of force if any citizens were affected in any other way.
Other than the 6 fatalities and the 16 wounded or injured, I am not aware of any others.
The other issue that I'm seeking to understand is we have received reports from witnesses on the possible locations of where people could have died on the spot or dying. Would you have any ideas now about where the 6 people died in the CBD, or is still part of the investigations?
They've gotten information from the police, which I'm sure everybody is aware of now in the commission, that there was a body somewhere along 4th Street near Pismas. There was a lady who died close to somewhere along Kenneth Kaunda, or close to Kenneth Kaunda, behind the police station. There was another body that was found in the Copacabana area. 2 bodies were dumped at Parenyatwa, and then there is an individual who was transferred to Parenyatwa from Harare Hospital and later passed on. So that accounts for the 6.
My interest in asking this question is to see, without doubt to my mind, that there would have been a concentration of people that died at one spot. But I heard what you said. The other question is on, in the morning, we heard from Harare Central Hospital about people that were treated there. There is on the list number 12, one Inos Mutangadura, who is said to have been admitted in 1A1, having been fractured on the pelvis from a beating by a soldier in Glenview. Would you have any knowledge about this particular assault case?
No, I don't have, but I suppose this could be one of the many allegations that were made after the 1st of August, that people were being beaten, even those who had fights over their own private issues decided to make these fights an issue for the commission. So yes, there were all these allegations that we made.
Okay, just one last issue is to say that if when we read your submissions, the videos that you've provided, would you make yourself available if there are any questions that the commission might feel they want to ask, whether it's letters or what? Okay.
I'll be available.
Okay. The other issue arising from what you've just said is that I think we did get some cartridges, received some cartridges, which we also looking at you investing, some investigations about the cartridges being made. We received them in the morning, and we are hoping that your office does not leave this place without them, so that we are assured of investigations proceeding. Just also want to check if a ballistic expert has been sent to, it should be yesterday, when we visited the city offices. We indicated that there was need for an expert to go and make assessments that we're not sure whether that report is, you already have it.
No, I have not seen any report from the commission or any request that we do something for the commission other than being here.
Okay, no further questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further questions?
Yes, I think that I might want you to realize that in view of the evidence that has come from you and the former witness, the real issue becomes quite, a finding has to be made by the commission as to who shot the 6 people and who shot at the other people that were injured. Which means that that finding would have, from the evidence that you have given, it would mean that if we were to find, for example, that the military did it, let's say we make that finding as a matter of fact, it would really go a long way in raising issues about the position that has been taken. Because what it means is that now the commission may have to adopt, we will be able to establish in terms of our terms of reference who actually caused the shooting, who caused the death. Would you appreciate that creates serious issues for the military here, I think from the evidence that has been given?
Chair, I hear what the commissioner is saying, but the commission is empowered to investigate to the extent possible, and if the commission comes up and is able to say yes, it is the military, then it is my credibility at stake. So I hope you also appreciate that. And I would not be saying this if I knew that one of my men actually opened fire on these 16 people who were injured.
Well, General, I think that my colleague is wrestling with one of the central perplexing issue that we're having to deal with. There's no undeniable fact that 6 people were killed and they died of gunshots. I believe you, in your presentation, said that there are 3 possible groups that may have arms. You talked about V people who may be wanting to protect their properties. You talked about the militants in the opposition party. And you talked about hoodlums who may have weapons. Am I to understand that your suggestion is that some of these deaths by gunshots may have come from any of these other groups?
Yes, indeed, that is what I'm suggesting.
That's what you're suggesting.
Indeed.
And that's what the military is telling us, because your military colleague of yours, junior to you, no doubt, but speaking with the same military authority, was saying that he was cocksure that no military shot anybody. And you have just repeated that, but you've added the existence of these three possible groups that would possess arms. And so you are suggesting that the gunshots may have come from those groups. That's what you said.
Indeed, that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Can I again clarify, not to do with this, but just in my notes, because I haven't read the documents you have, just to be sure that what you got yourself from the Minister of Defense was a letter by the Minister of Defense to the President, and then there is no letter from the Minister of Defense to the Commander yourself.
No, I got a verbal instruction immediately after he had done the processes to say proceed with the deployment.
Yes. In other words, what we have in writing is the letter of the Commissioner General of Police to the Minister of Home Affairs, and the letter from the Minister of Home Affairs to the Minister of Defense, and a letter from the Minister of Defense to the President. But there is no letter from the President to the Minister of Defense. At least in writing, we don't have that from your evidence. And then we also do not have a letter from the Minister of Defense to the Commander of the Defense Force. These are not in writing. In other words, the deployment was done verbally.
The request was formal, but the order to deploy was done verbally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Sibanda, for availing yourself to the Commission. As my colleagues have indicated, the difficulty that confronts this Commission is that the principal director of pathology confirmed that all the fatalities were caused by gunshots. They also confirmed that a number of those injured were injured by gunshots, and that the one person whose pelvic bone was fractured, that was caused by the force of a rifle butt. So that's the report that we received from the principal director of pathology in the Ministry of Health. So, and of course we are aware that the investigations are in progress. They are work in progress. And we have to wait for those investigations to be completed. Otherwise, there would be a huge gap in understanding what actually happened. So we hope that you will use your good offices to ensure that the process of the investigations is given the necessary fillip so that we can come to some scientific understanding of what happened. Thank you. I don't expect you to give me an answer now. So thank you very much, General. You may step down.
Thank you very much.
Why, if we want to continue with the fiction?
At Sly Media Productions, we offer live streaming services to companies willing to reach a worldwide audience. We bring you live studio interactive talk shows and interviews.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this live broadcast.
It is sad to note that every day in our local papers there is a case of rape. Are the current penalties not good enough to stop perpetrators from committing crime?
We follow them and help build Zimbabwe brand on a positive note. When you think of reaching the ever-growing internet audience with your video adverts, think Sly Media TV Online. If you want to pre-package TV programs, documentaries, weddings and church services, think Sly Media Productions, building bridges. Your TV on the go, anytime, anywhere, worldwide.